What up, my boys? It's your baby boy Brank here, bringing you the sweet, sweet news. So feel free to crack one open as me and the boys start talking about God of War. It's a spoiler cast.
Please sit responsibly.
Who am I joined with today? Is there my baby boy Joshy Jankaroony with me?
Hey, JJ Abrams is here in the house.
Nice. Yeah, I forgot. We're no longer a Jank. We are now a JJ. We've upgraded. And my boy from Mini BS. Who is it?
What was my nickname? Conbon?
Conba, Contra, Contour, whatever you want to be.
Excellent.
It's your day, okay?
It's my day.
The most complicated part of joining the Super BS crew is getting a nickname.
Well, unless you're Hot Scott. That was like super quick. Hot Scott was coming up almost instantly. Well, anyways, yeah, we all got the chance to play God of War. We all hated it, as you've heard on our mini discussions.
Clearly.
Every single one of us hated it, okay? Now, we all have different opinions. I know JJ's doing a review about it, which will go up probably a little bit before this spoiler cast. I think overall, did you guys like the game?
No. Yes.
I loved
What about
it.
you, Contra?
Loved
Yeah, it's
it,
good,
loved
right?
It, loved it. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. It's a game where I really did not like the first 12 hours because I felt like I was just walking, and I ended up loving it. Since this is a spoiler cast and we're just going to go ahead and spoil it, so if you don't want God of War spoiled, don't listen from this point on. So I, just to get spoilers started, I love the game the second you get Mimir. Like that to me is when the game changes. I don't know. What do you guys think about Mimir as a character? I felt like he was really where the dynamics of the game came
He
through.
was interesting in the fact that, like Hellblade, I really like that game. You had to actually go to different places to find the story of Norse mythology. But in God of War, Mimir basically just told you all these stories as you were traveling from place to place. So you didn't have to, go on Google and find out who all these Norse gods were if you don't know your Norse mythology. He would sit there and tell you all the stories, and it was genuinely interesting because he told it in such a way that it made it feel like he was actually interacting with someone and not reading out of a book. So that's what I liked about his character.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that him telling it from the perspective of having been there for some of it was really, really, really cool. And his introduction and how it was a gameplay mechanic brought in, and then him being on the boat. It's just so many cool different venues to really explore that mythology.
That's an excellent point, is how he gets to tell you about the Norse mythology. I recently finished the book Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. It's excellent. Everybody
Croc
should read
mythology.
it.
Is that the one you read?
I did read it. It's awesome. But I do, Croc Mythology. That's the new book coming out by Dr. Neil Donna. It's better than Norse mythology. But, I love the boat stuff. That is one of those things where I did get out of the boat and then they continued it, but I was always excited to hear their little chatter that they had to do. Was there anything that stood out to you, moments in the game? If you guys want to give me a few, maybe Contra?
A moment in the game that stood out to, well, that first big fight with Baldur, the guy who can't feel pain, and just the way it switched between you playing and cinematic, and then cinematic with button cues in there, and just the fast pace of the fight. It was so awesome. I was just so excited, and so much of the combat system was yet to be revealed at that point, where it's you didn't have any of the XP perk upgrades, you didn't have any of the runes or anything like that, but it was still so much fun that it led to so much promise in the game. So that's probably my first really big point. And then the second thing that I really, really, really enjoyed was the reveal of the motherhood of the witch being Baldur's mom, and then her bringing that big ass giant in there to kind of try and protect him, even though he wants to kill her. It was It was so great.
That scene alone will probably have a lot to talk about. But is there any moment, JJ, that stood out to you too? We're gonna come back to both those scenes, Connor, because they were also really rad.
The moments where Kratos is trying to be a father, but he doesn't quite know how. Those were the ones that really hit me. You have the part where Atreyu, I'm thinking of the metal band.
Atreyu, the band, yes, they're all there, following him around the mountain. It's a really strange game.
No, Atreus has these parts where he's mourning his mom. He doesn't understand like that Kratos is also mourning, but Kratos is like a numb bastard, so you don't really like see he mourns in a different way than Atreus does. But Atreus is like looking over the cliff and he's sad, and Kratos reaches out to put his hand on Atreus' shoulder, and then he pulls back because he doesn't know how to do it. Yeah, and he's like trying to figure out. He's trying to because he hasn't felt like it seems to me like love is something that he hasn't experienced in a long time, not since his wife and kid died in the original God of War series, and now he's trying to relearn how to be a father, how to love another human being besides himself, because he's been so consumed with revenge for so long that that's just kind of been an afterthought to him, and now he's stuck raising Atreus. That was also probably something he wasn't planning on. And it's interesting to see those dynamics, because you have those really powerful moments where he only refers to Atreus as Atreus in moments when Atreus is about to when he's in danger. So otherwise he just calls him boy. So you see these moments of affection that almost seem to surprise even Kratos himself.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up a really good point, and I think we'll talk about that in the story even deeper soon. My favorite points, just to get out before we just go through this thing, probably piece by piece, because there are a million spoilers in this game, are the last two reveals, but I'll just wait till we get to those at the end. I think some of the very cliffhangery, can't wait for the next game stuff made me can't wait for the next game, and now I'm disappointed knowing that it's going to be 4 or 5 years between this.
The reveal that Atreus is actually the Hulk, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that is what I'm referring
Hulk
to. This is a spoiler cast, so we can get it out of the way. Yeah, Atreus is Loki, but let's start with the really cool Baldur cinematic. That was a moment where I was way, way, way into the game. The second he comes knocking on the door, I'm like, who is this? It's gonna be a god. Oh my goodness, it's gonna be awesome. I have some reservations about that scene later in context of the game, because I expected that he was going to be one of many gods. I had played all the other God of Wars, and the way they all work, you are making your way till the big bad, so I was assuming Odin, and you are going to come across multiple gods. But this is a very different God of War outside of keeping the same character and the same idea. But beyond that scene alone is amazing. And Connor mentioned it. What do you think about that, JJ? The scene where he comes to the door looking for you.
It's intense, because I didn't really know what to expect, and just the fact that it lasted for such a long time it just made it that much more thrilling, because you didn't know what was going to happen. It's one of those times when I'm asking myself, am I supposed to die? What is going on here? Am I just wasting my time mashing buttons against this dude, or is this part of the game, or what am I doing here? And then, you eventually get through it. But it's cool because you think that originally he's after Atreus, but it turns out that he's after both of them.
Actually, I thought we find out at the very end that he's after the mom. He was there looking for her because he was there. Odin in mythology wants to kill all the giants, and his mom was the last of the giants. So that's why he came to the house. That's what I've been led to.
Because I thought that he was after Kratos, because Kratos is will help him get to the lands where the other gods are. I might have misinterpreted that.
I think that might be reaching a little bit, but yes, that is cool though. He shows up nonetheless, and he does fight this. This does end up in an epic fight. Connor, what did you think when he showed up? Did you know that it was going to be a big boss battle, or what did you think? It was just going to be?
I went into this title as blind as I could be, with having little tastes of the hype train coming up to it. So I heard a couple things the kind of sidekick you get eventually is going to be so amazing, and I really didn't know that it was what it was going to lead into what it did, and when it finally did, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that was amazing. I thought the next really cool spoiler reveal was the ability to go between the realms. I think, rest of it wasn't after that, you just go through the thing with the boy, and I don't remember anything really cool or spoilery. Do you guys, till you get to the realms? I think you just go to the place where you have to go to Alfheim. And that's kind of
when you first hit the Lake of the Nine?
Yes, the Lake of the Nine, and then you go to Tyr's. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. It's like Tyr's big building place that you go to, and then that's where all the realms are located.
Yeah, that was
and
really
then,
cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that was happening. I
didn't see
even
that
reading
coming
all the
either.
reviews. Yeah, I didn't think like, oh, I didn't know a lot about Norse mythology. I didn't realize there were multiple realms. I definitely didn't think we were going to be leaving Midgard. I thought like, oh, this game's just going to take place in this one place. What do you guys think of Alfheim?
It was cool. That was the one where they get the light. It kind of reminded me of Mass Effect a little bit.
Oh yeah, I got that same vibe. Absolutely.
And you could always tell like when the enemies were gonna pop up because there's like the area opened up, like it was big for like a fighting arena, and they kind of reminded me of the bug type creatures. So it was, I thought it was cool. There's a lot of stuff, like the different enemy types were fun. I didn't really like the flying ones just because they took so much, and you could either kill them very easily or they would be very difficult to fight. So that was just trying to figure out ways to kill the different enemy types was cool for me.
Not really a spoiler about story, but real quick about Alfheim. I actually think that's the weakest section in the game because I think it moves the slowest. I know you guys both seem to enjoy it, but I just think in Alfheim, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of diverging paths. I even went back after I finished the game there, and it's just kind of like a main path. And there's some rooms you can walk into.
Yeah, there's some, like once you get into the lake, there's some areas on each side that you can kind of explore that involves a little mastery of what you do with the frost or the Leviathan axe.
Yeah, I mean that's an excellent thing. I do have to say I loved that point where he reaches into the light and then he goes like after the mother and then he comes back out and it's been I don't know how long, but there's all the dead bodies around Atreus. What do you think about that, Connor?
I love that part. That was so incredibly cool. And Atreus is all winded and like, oh, it was just a second, boy. And he's like, no, you've been gone so long. And he's just all pissed. And it was so like innocent and real. And the relationship was so accurately demonstrated with like Kratos' ignorance as a father being like, oh, I was just gone a second. And it's like, dude, I've been killing guys over here for like an hour and a half, and I'm gassed.
Yeah, it doesn't really give you a clear explanation of the time, so I actually wonder how long he was in there. Because, like, with the amount of bodies, it literally could have been almost a day. Like, when he comes back, it's like, Trace is totally bloodied, and there's tons of enemies everywhere.
Yeah,
that was
very cool.
That's probably one of my first favorite story beats. Like, I liked the Baldur fight, but till that scene, like, I guess it was cool meeting Brock, but I didn't find it like, whoa, super interesting. And meeting the witch, who is, oh man, what's her real name in the end? Odin's wife? Freya. Yes,
Freya. Yeah.
Frieza,
yes. When she does some Dragon Ball.
The power
Goku.
level. The power level.
I loved getting Kratos' power level up all the way to the max.
Atreus with the little eye thing. It's like you can get it from the vendor.
Oh, man. But yeah, that was very cool. I really think the game starts to get going, though, once you get to the mountain the first time, which is almost halfway through the game, and you meet Magni and Modi, like Baldur's nephews, Thor's children. Like, what do you guys think about those characters?
I thought they were really cool characters. I thought they were, for how briefly they were part of the timeline, they still had a lot of depth to them. And in the 45 seconds to a minute of dialogue between them, you could see a lot of their dynamic within themselves displayed, which was also really cool. I felt like by the time I got to that part of the game, I don't know if because I had done like each little side quest it was presented to me and really smelled the flowers as I got there, but I just melted those guys. So as far as the fight is concerned, I was like, oh, I kind of feel a little too powerful. I wanted more of a challenge. But as far as those characters are concerned, it was really cool and completely unexpected.
I liked how they were kind of trying to prove. It's like they're trying to prove themselves, like the way like a son or daughter tries to prove themselves to their parents or make them proud. So they were out there trying to earn their place within the like libraries of Norse mythology by doing all this stuff, and in the end it ended up costing them. But no, the battles were cool, and they were they were they were, they were pretty scary, and they were kind of like and you can see that they were easily like manipulated. So they had a lot of depth to them, but you can kind of tell where their story arc was going.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting that they were voiced by Sony residents Nolan North and Troy Baker, the Uncharted 4 and Last of Us and all the games that those people voice characters in. Yeah, I really liked them. I was glad that the game presented another enemy, because I got sick of fighting those stupid giants, the ones with the they have like a club, like a giant pillar, and you fight them about 9 or 10 times in the game.
For real though, how cool is it that you were able to still kill those guys from a distance with a Leviathan axe?
But it was so much of just like damage, like running around, like hit a little bit, run back, hit a little bit. I thought that fight with those guys was the weakest part of the game when it came to battling. I thought the combat between normal enemies, combat between ogres, combat between everybody else, we're talking about spoilers, so the Valkyries, all of that stuff was really, really cool and really interesting, but the combat between those giants was...
So looking back on Modi and what was the other guy's name? Magni. Looking back on them, would you have done that fight differently, knowing that Magni was going to live? Would you have just gone after the taller one with the beard?
I mean, you can't choose because it's a game, but yeah, if you could choose.
Yeah, no, yeah. You can choose which one you lay your attacks into more.
But they don't. The game, like, you have to get them both down to a certain health to move on, to progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, Connor, you had something to mention about the
returning
giants.
back to you saying, hey, fights you liked and fights you didn't. I agree, those big ones got really repetitive. One I disliked even more than that was the guys whose kind of chest opened up, and then you would throw the axe into it, and then pieces of them would fall into the ground, and you would just throw it back at them like 3 times, and then it was over. I thought that was even weaker than that one in particular. I really enjoyed the Valkyrie fights, though.
Yeah, I played 3 of the Valkyrie fights. I don't think I finished any of them. I have some issues, as I've mentioned on Super BS, about the progression system in the game. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it enough to try to farm materials so I can get stronger. And the Valkyrie fights are extremely difficult. The closest I got was probably 3/4 down on one of them, and I probably spent about 5 fights. Did either of you guys, JJ, did you beat any of the Valkyries?
No, but I attempted it. Like, they reminded me of those they reminded me of the boats in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, like the big ships, how they let you get their health down to like maybe 2/3 and then they just destroy you completely. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. Oh crap, I'm dead.
Were you able to beat one of the Valkyries, Connor?
I beat 2 of the Valkyries. And,
good job, man.
I know. And, I come from a strong Dark Souls background. I've beat every one of the titles as well as Bloodborne. So for me, I think I've just kind of studied under the school of I'm going to die 6 times learning this boss. And then on the 7th and 8th one, I'm probably going to beat it. And I just kind of committed to that. And especially the first Valkyrie that I ran into, it only had 3 attack patterns, especially if you distance yourself from it. So as soon as I kind of learned how to almost cheese it in that way, it was just, okay, he's far away, I parry, I attack, and just repping it and staying disciplined.
So how long did that take you?
I want to say I beat the first one in about 35 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, but that's by, like, throwing the axe multiple times.
No, all I would do is I would wait for it to get far away, and then it would do that thing where it kind of charges up and runs at you, and that attack always gave you a parry. So I would try and bait the Valkyrie into doing that attack. I would parry. I had the perk where I hit it back, and then I'd get like 3 chops in, and then I'd roll away and try and get it to do that same attack again.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a lesson in patience. But overall, I thought those fights were very well done.
I never got enough of the pieces to build any of the armor, though, so it was all for nothing.
Yeah, I did I tried Muspelheim. I did not try Niflheim, but Muspelheim is just like a bunch of arenas where you have different challenges, and I did a few of them, and I realized I'm like, I like this, but I don't like this enough to do them all. So
it was too time consuming. The challenges, like, they were fun at first, but then Like if there were 3 of them, I could understand doing that. But the fact that what did you say? There were 6 of them. Like just like the first 3 took a long. Each of those took a really long time to get through, and it's not. Like I wanted to go play the rest of the game. I didn't want to just keep doing this. It probably would have taken me a good like 3 or 4 hours to get through all of them.
Yeah, so me and JJ have had an experience with God of War series. You played God of War 1 and 2, right, JJ?
Right.
I've played 1 and 2 to complete. Like I finished both of them, and I almost finished 3. Connor, you've played a little bit of 3, but you said you weren't very interested in it, right?
Yeah, I couldn't really commit. The gameplay just felt old, and you were far back, and yeah.
I feel like 3's the weakest. To be honest, I got it right when it came out on PS3, and I still didn't finish it, where I finished the other 2 like right when they came out. Anyways, one of my favorite story moments is when you go get the Blades of Chaos. That was so cool when she's like, oh, you're gonna need something that's on fire to go kill these people in Helheim. And I knew it was coming because I was like, oh, well, one, I was dumb and I went on Twitch and saw somebody play and they had the blades, so I'd already had it spoiled. And then JJ spoiled it on the show for everybody else who didn't know.
I had no idea. I went in completely blind. And, like, I knew what they were, but I didn't really know. And so that was just, like, I was drooling into a bowl beneath my chin when I got to do that. Yep.
Yeah, I also thought it's cool because they give you, for the people who didn't get a chance to play 1 through 3, they give you kind of like this callback where he rubs like his wrists throughout the game. And, you know, if you played him, you kind of realize like, oh, that's probably the chains, you know, but he always had them wrapped because he didn't want to tell his son. And I just thought that was really cool when he finally takes off the wrapping and shows you the chain markings there. And I mean, like, you know, it's obviously a magical chained weapon that doesn't make any sense, but it's just like a really cool, like, thing that it's like a callback where he's always like, you know, touching his wrist and stuff. What do you guys think about the, like, it took a long time for him to tell Atreus that he was a god. What do you guys think about that story beat as a whole?
I thought it was fairly well executed. I think it had you kind of being like, when's it going to happen? And at first it seemed like there would be no reason to wait because so many of the other characters were like, oh, you got to tell him, you got to tell him. But then after you tell him, the change in his character and how he's relating to the other, you know, characters around him, and even Kratos is like, you just want to give him a little slap on his little tushy and being like, hey, dude, calm down. You're still like, yay big. You know what I mean? He got so full of himself and so arrogant with the reveal that it was like, I kind of get why you waited because this kid's a dick now.
Yeah, what do you think about it, JJ?
There were parts when it kind of annoyed me because I was like, what if obviously like if this is making him sick, like if he doesn't understand and the rage he feels is making him is gonna kill him, why don't you just tell him? But then like as he finally does tell him, like he tells him a little bit, but he doesn't tell him about like the Ghost of Sparta part until the very end of or close to the end of the game. But like as he tells him, yeah, like Connor was saying, the kid, like his attitude changes, and I don't think that's the reason that Kratos was holding it back. It was just kind of one of those weird like side effects, and maybe it goes to show you like why all the gods in these games are so cocky, because they're like, hey, I'm immortal, I can't die, or I can die, but it takes a lot to kill me. I don't know, but it almost like I did like the fact that it made it feel like Kratos had something to lose, though, because in all the other games he's just kind of going through slicing up monsters and doing women on boats and stuff, and he just does not have any, like, he doesn't have any vulnerability. You're just like, yeah, he's just like, I'm a god, and you know, if I die in the game, you're gonna get a game over, but you're just gonna start at this checkpoint. And this one, it made it seem like the character had something to lose. He had something to protect, so it made the stakes feel that much bigger in what he was doing in his journey. But then, as as his son, it was weird because they didn't explain like why Atreus like all of a sudden didn't remember that he was being an asshole, like at the after he came to or whatever. And then he's like how he knocked what's his name off the cliff, and he's like, that wasn't me. Like they don't ever explain like why that happened, but it was he just kind of comes into his own thing, and it was an interesting little coming of age part of the story. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in where it's going.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this. Always reminds me of like the Superman syndrome, where it's like, oh, he doesn't want to reveal that he's like a god, so he's gonna keep it. And you're waiting this long time for this reveal that you know is gonna happen. And like you guys, I had a very hard time with Atreus when he was being a dumb like brat. Like, oh my goodness, I could not stand him at that point of the game, like where he was just annoying and being mean to everybody. But yeah, I was glad that they did that they got it over with. I almost wished that they could have just told Atreus that he was a god much, much, much earlier on. But I get it. That's like kind of one of their story beats that they wanted to happen. And it makes sense. You know, you don't tell like a 2-year-old, I guess, they're God probably if they're living in a mortal's world. So you wait for a while. Yeah, I thought that a lot of the best story beats happened really, really close to the end. You mentioned the fight with the giant where Freya was controlling the giant to stop you, Kratos, from killing Baldur, her son. What do you guys think about how she was gonna let Baldur kill her, and because Kratos killed Baldur, she got like super upset? Like, JJ, what do you think when she said like, I'm gonna, I can't remember her speech, but it was like super epic where it's like, I'm gonna make sure your body's torn and your entrails are carried across the world?
She was an interesting character to me because she was very conflicted. Even when you don't find out until later, but like why she freaked out so much when Atreus walked into her house with those green arrows. She was very conflicted. Like, you can tell, you don't know where her story's going. Yeah, she's really pissed at Kratos right now, but in the end, she might end up helping them because like she hates Odin even more than she hates Kratos. So she was, she wanted to save her son, but I think deep down she knew that Baldur could not be saved. So that was and Kratos doesn't seem too worried about what she's going to do. So I'm curious where she's going to go in the next game. But like, she was definitely an interesting character who had a lot of depth and layers to her because she's very conflicted, even more conflicted than Kratos, and that's a rare feat in a game like this.
Connor, do you think she's going to be the big bad for the next game, or do you think she's going to be a side villain?
I think she'll probably team up again later in a bizarre plot twist type of Shyamalan situation.
That I could see that happening.
It's going to be that last minute. You're going to get smashed by a particular object that I'm sure we'll discuss soon. And then, in steps Freya and saves the day. She's not mad at you anymore. She's baking you magical cakes from under her turtle. It's going to be awesome.
That could be the case because she does seem to hate Odin and probably his son Thor more than she hates like anybody else. So there is I agree with you, that definitely could happen, but I feel like they're setting her up to be the primary antagonist for at least most of the second game, to at least lead you on this quest. I think now we finally need to get to what really happens when they get to Jotunheim, because like they've been trying, they go up and they find that the tallest cliff isn't the tallest cliff in all the realms. It's the one where Mimir's standing, and Mimir says they need to go to Jotunheim. If you guys want to talk about Tyr's temple and the flipping, that's kind of cool. I don't know if that stood out to you guys where he flips the temple. JJ, was there any moment in there that you thought was like especially interesting, or was it all kind of like, for me, the best story moments are at the back end, but I don't want to rush it. I want to give you guys a chance if there's something that you remember before we get to that.
No, the temple flipping was very formulaic, and you can kind of predict what happens. You're like, I'm going to go through here, I got to jump through all these buzzsaws or whatever, and then I'm going to do this, and then a bunch of dudes are going to come out, and I'm going to kill them, and then rinse and repeat until you get to the very, I think you do it like 3 times, and then you finally flip the temple upside down. But no, that wasn't really that spectacular to me. It was fun. You kind of have that part where he gets into the what was the collection room of whoever's place that was, and that showed like the Ghost of Sparta, and you had on the vases, and you have the wine or whatever, and he has
Tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has that moment with Atreus as they're going back up on the elevator where he shares the wine with him, and then finally you see resolution. They're on the same page, and all the like pain and suffering that and insecurities that happen throughout the game finally feel like they level out, and you're like, okay, now we're ready to move forward.
That actually brings me to a great thing that I almost missed. JJ just brought it up. That scene where they're in that collection room hints at the potential of going to different pantheons. Did you get a chance to read into that, Connor? There's a chance that God of War may go to several other pantheons.
Can you let me know what pantheon means?
Oh, like Egyptian mythology, Chinese mythology. Pantheons are the gods that are in this mythology.
I understand.
So,
Thank you for making me seem so stupid.
I'm sorry.
What's that word mean? I kind of saw that in the little corners. You have the Egyptian one. You have all these different. So I think that would be in a very, very, very exciting direction for the series, and I think it would kind of keep it very, very fresh from title to title because you're exploring a new area of mythology, a whole new environment. And if it's anything like this one, we know they'll flesh it out, and it'll be an amazing experience.
Did you guys catch the conversation between Mimir and Kratos? How Mimir was saying that Odin is trying to find a way into these other realms so that he can conquer them?
I missed that, but you did mention this to me privately. That sounds crazy. That sounds cool. I kind of hope that they don't just make Odin this big bad that sends you across the realms and that you actually get to fight the other realms' gods on their own. But, I mean, if it leads to those cool places and it's not just like Odin's in control and, all of these other guys do what he wants and now you fight them because Odin's bad. I'd love to see other mythologies and other places.
Because think about this, too. We're going to have to get into Asgard at some point. So maybe we're going to have to go somewhere else before we get there. I don't know where they're going with this, but Cory Barlog said that they have, 5 more games planned right now. And
wow.
And what about that painting with Kratos and Atreus? How did you guys...
We're talking about the end now, right? Where we're in Jotunheim?
Right. How do you guys see that? Like, what did you get out of that? What did you think of it?
I thought it was Kratos and Atreus dying. Some people on the internet have said that Atreus is killing Kratos. Other people on the internet have said that Tyr, the Norse god of war, looks exactly like Kratos, and it could actually be Tyr that Atreus is killing. I don't know. I just know it's very ominous, and I was like, whoa, okay, this was one of the really cool beats that made me really excited. What about you, JJ?
So what I saw was that there was something happening between them. So I don't know, if maybe one of them is transferring their life force to the other or transferring power or whatever. Because I don't think that Kratos. I don't think that he would kill Kratos. Especially after this game, it kind of make this game feel pointless. So I think that Kratos is helping Loki fulfill his destiny, and maybe at the end of 5 games we won't have another Kratos, but. Something happens. I don't think that they're going to finish this saga as enemies, though.
What about you, Connor? What do you see in that pictogram, I guess?
Honestly, it went by so fast that I didn't get a good look at it, and then I was like, oh, that was probably something important. So as soon as the cutscene, well, I guess it's not a cutscene, the scene ended, I went up to the wall and tried to cheese the camera around so that it would get caught and I could see the mural again. And I tried that from 6 different angles for about 9 minutes, and then I was like, they knew I was going to try and do this, so they made sure I couldn't. Honestly, I have no idea. I just wanted to share how cutely I tried to be smarter than the developer and failed.
I thought it was a great moment. I also thought the reveal that the mother was a giant who could see the future was awesome. In Norse mythology, Loki's mother is a giant. The difference is Loki is actually some mythology, or some people read him as the brother of Thor. Some people read him as a blood brother to Odin. He is not supposed to be just some random dude. But the reveal,
mean Marvel is lying to us?
Marvel is a bunch of liars, these jerks. No, but that reveal was probably one of the crazy, till the final reveal that we'll talk about in a minute. But that reveal where he says that, oh, mother had a different name for me and it was pronounced Loki. And oh my goodness, I got chills. That was one of those moments where I was like, wow, okay, they did something that I did not expect.
you feel the consequences of their journey the moment that they say that, because if you know Norse mythology, Loki killing Balder is what brings on Ragnarok. So that's you're like, oh wow, that was a very big moment.
Yeah. Connor, what do you think about that when he mentioned Loki? That was his name. That's who he was.
I'm gonna sound like a complete mega dweeb again, but I didn't know. I had to Google when he said Loki. I paused the game and brought up my phone and Googled Loki so I can understand the backstory and the relevance of what happened. So I think a lot of it was lost on me through my own selfish ignorance.
It's one of those things where I literally found out most of the stuff when I was reading Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. I read the story about Loki killing Balder yesterday, like about a week after I finished the game. But I thought that was super interesting, and that comes from like the epochs. I thought it was amazing. I thought those tie-ins were excellent. I am curious what this means, because Loki isn't necessarily like the big bad of Norse mythology, but he is like a selfish, clever god who generally does, bring about Ragnarok and the end of the world. And his children, the serpent, Jormungandr, the world serpent in the game, like that's Loki's children. That's one of Loki's children.
And Hela too, right? Of the goddess of the underworld. Is his daughter.
Yes. Hela is his daughter, and the wolf that they show just on one of those really awesome paintings, like those armoires almost open up, and then there's like this painting that they explain about the wolf. That's his son, the wolf that's so big that he eats the sun and the moon.
Did you see how when he found out he was a god, he's like, the first animal he asked if he could turn into was a wolf?
No, wait, when did this happen?
Yeah, he asked if he can, as a god, if he has any powers, like if he can turn into
he's
another
like,
animal.
Can I turn into a wolf?
Yeah, and Kratos is like, I don't know, boy.
Surprise me.
I'm curious, because he is a god, I'm wondering if they're going to give him Loki's powers, because Loki in Norse mythology can turn into anything he wants. He's like a shape-shifting god. So I don't know. I doubt they'll do that, because that would, with gameplay mechanics, that would be crazy. Like, it would just make the game totally different.
RNG, anything.
Yeah. But finally, I think my favorite spoiler in the game comes after you go home at the very end and go to bed. Did we all watch this? I just want to double check.
Yes.
What did you guys think when they go to bed and they show that dream sequence? JJ, tell us what happened.
Well, they kept mentioning Thor throughout the entire game, so you knew that the game could not end without them showing Thor in some way. So whether or not, but what they didn't specify is Thor going to be an enemy or an ally in this coming charge or battle or whatever it is. So that was cool. It was a cool call out, and it was like, because that's what everybody kept waiting for. That everyone kept waiting for Thor to show up in some form, and then he shows up in the dream, and you don't know what's going to happen. It just kind of stops, and that was what's really cool, because you have to guess. They don't give you any concrete details. We'll be sitting here wondering what's going on for the next probably 2 or 3 years.
Connor, what do you think about that scene?
You know how when a writer of any type does a really good cliffhanger, like really well executed, you're almost pissed because you're like, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen. This is amazing, but I want more. And then, so I was impressed but mad, because I wanted more, and now I have to patiently wait as Santa Monica Studios powers through the next 4 years of development.
I'm hoping it's a short development cycle. That was one of my biggest beefs with the game originally, was that, there's not that many gods, and they haven't mentioned Thor, or, I mean, they mentioned him, but they haven't shown Thor or Odin. I'm like, are we just going to end this game with so much, like, left unsaid? And when you saw that dream sequence, I was so excited. And JJ, I don't think he's going to be on your side. I think it's going to be a battle. God of War has always been about killing off the other gods. Gods are bad. He says that to Atreus in the game, that gods aren't good, and they're going to be the first good gods. So
right, yeah, and they're going into Ragnarok, so you kind of already know, if you know the mythology, you kind of know where it's going. There's going to be a big battle, and nobody's really on anybody's side. So I just want to know how Kratos is going to fit into this story.
Yeah, I'm curious how Ragnarok's going to be in the game. Like, are we going to get Ragnarok in the next God of War? Are we going to be traveling through the different mythologies before Ragnarok? Like, there's a lot of stuff that, like, I love Norse mythology. I can't imagine that they have enough to do 3 games in this mythology. If they do 3 games in this world, I mean, we'll see. They did an excellent job with this, but I would imagine it would be pretty boring by the 3rd game. However, they may do that. They may keep 3 if they don't show Odin by the end of this one, or by the end of the next one, I mean.
Right. So, I mean, I think Odin's gonna be like the Zeus of this series of games, but he says there's 5 games planned, so I think they're all going to intertwine. We're not going to get like a single mythology for each game. I think going forward, they're going to start mixing things up a little bit.
And that could potentially be cool. I would love to travel like Egypt and stuff. Connor, I know you're not the hugest mythology fan, but is there a mythology that you'd like to visit?
Because I didn't know what Pantheon meant. I think Far Eastern mythology would be really, really, really cool. And I mean, Egypt would be fantastic as well. So I'm not going to be picky because history is so rich that there's so much to do with all of it. And especially with how well they explored Greek mythology and now with Norse, it's just exciting to think that they're going to just take a big bite into something completely new. And I agree that with 5 more titles announced and with how well this one sold, mainly because of how different it was from the former titles, I think we'll see variety in the setting, as well as the characters and gods.
Yeah, I agree that there's just so much richness that they could explore. Overall it was a great game. It's still not my top game of 2018, but I do love it. And
what is your top game?
It's Ni no Kuni 2, but until you guys finish that, we can do we can do a spoiler cast on Ni no Kuni 2.
I returned that. I wanted to love that
yeah.
so bad. All right, we digress.
Okay, anyways, we'll talk about Ni no Kuni 2 on a different day. When we all join, when Mini BS and Super BS aligns in our Ultra Universe for Game of the Year at the end of this year, we will have a good fight to see what makes it to the top. But this definitely was a great game. Does anybody have any closing comments about this?
Play it. Like, honestly, just listening to us talk about it does not do the game justice. And there's so much more beyond what we talked about. There's so many layers to this game and so many things to do that you have to play. You really just have to experience it yourselves. You can't experience it vicariously through any of us. Really just go out and play the game.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've discovered now that I've finished it is that there's still so much left to do after you're done. And not like, I'm going to go pick up 120 feathers and like go through an IGN guide on where to find 120, like meaningful parts of location, entire chunks of the map that are still yet to be explored. Especially because I had to pound out the rest of the game for this little podcast here.
No, not at all. We did not rush you. We
So
have plenty of time.
I'm really excited to go through and, move that little map around and see what else is waiting in store for me. How many more Valkyries I can kill before you guys finish your first one.
I love the game, but I'm back to older stuff for the game of the year, like Far Cry 5 and no, I already beat Ni no Kuni 2.
Oh, okay.
Like Far Cry 5 and a bunch of other stuff.
Can we say one brief thing about Ni no Kuni? Maybe you can explain it to me. And this is a spoiler, so if you're waiting to figure out what happens at the very opening of Ni no Kuni, the atomic blast that sends the president into the Nino realm, is that addressed ever again?
At the very, very, very end of the game.
Okay.
But it's not exactly... That's not like a big part of it. There are a lot of really, really cool reveals at the end. That game's great. You should play it. Did you get a chance to play it?
I got like 45 minutes to I got to the Sky Pirates. I recruited the Sky Pirates, and then I was kind of venturing on from there. And I think maybe the gameplay mechanics just weren't for me, and I wanted to love it. I was ready to love it. But I just couldn't. I'll give it a second try for you. For you, dude.
Are they
Thank
Game of the
you.
Year mechanics?
Once you get to city building, 3 hours in, it is Game of the Year mechanic. But if I don't watch out, I'll spend, this will have to be a God of War, Kuni 2 spoiler cast. So thank you all for joining us. Fuss Row Da, just like they do in God of War, as everybody knows. So we'll see y'all in Skyrim, the God of War land, and talk to y'all soon.
See ya.
Please sip responsibly.
Please sit responsibly.
That to us people that can feel things, it hurts.